Ag PhD full episodes and more are now available on Acres TV, the newest ag platform connecting you to fields of information. Look for us on watchacrestv.com. One of the fun things about being a landowner in rural areas is I actually own out to the middle of the gravel road, so that means the ditches are my responsibility, Brian?
Well, in a lot of cases, the ditches might be your responsibility, even if you don't own the ditch as a landowner.
Somebody's got to take care of them.
That's exactly right. So anyway, we're going to talk just a little about ditch care today, primarily with weed control.
Well, when you think about weeds getting into fields, where do they come into fields? A lot of times it's on the edges of fields, maybe even out of the ditches, because like we were saying, sometimes nobody's really watching the ditch really close, and if a weed comes up, boy, it can go to seed and spread into your field.
Okay, so I don't care if it spreads into your field or not. We want you to have that ditch looking good. Well, if you're going to do that, you want grass growing in there and you want no weeds. And it's typically broadleaf weeds that we're worried about. So we're going to talk about broadleaf herbicides you can spray in the ditch.
Well, if you think about it, if you don't want any residual activity out there, you just want to kill the weed and be done and leave no lasting impacts, the best choice you can have right now is a product called Freelex. And you were probably expecting me to say 2,4-D. This is a form of 2,4-D, but it's not the amines or esters that you're used to. Those old formulations of 2,4-D had volatility, so you could spray them on the weed, they could pick up and move later out into a field, causing damage to neighboring crops. 2,4-D choline or Freelex is one product that doesn't have that volatility issue, so as long as it's not windy and it blows it out there as you're spraying, you're going to do a great job on the weeds and you're not going to hurt the neighboring crops.
Two products that people talk about quite often for just spraying in areas, Roundup and Camba. So with Camba, that's very similar to 2,4-D in the weeds it controls and how it works. It's actually in the same chemical family even. The problem with Camba is it can volatilize, it can pick up and it can move. But if let's say that all the soybeans were tolerant to Camba in your area, and there's nothing else growing other than grass and corn, so in other words, you're perfectly safe to spray Camba, you can spray Camba in ditches if you would like to. With Roundup, some people will spray Roundup in ditches at a relatively low rate just to kind of thin things out, hopefully killing the annual weeds, and then it'll ding up the perennial grass, but the perennial grass will come back. Now, we don't typically recommend this, so I'm not suggesting you do it, but I just wanted to mention it because some people will ask about it.
As you're out there spraying the weeds, depending on the time of year, there may be a lot of insects moving around in those ditches too. And I know when we were growing up, one of the things my dad was always concerned about was grasshoppers. And if we saw tons and tons of grasshoppers in the ditch as we were out there, especially on the drier years, he'd say, you know what, I think we should put some insecticide in. Let's control all those grasshoppers before they move into our field or someone else's.
Yeah, it's just that not every insecticide labeled in crops is labeled in ditches, so make sure you check the label.
So as you're driving down those country roads, just keep in mind the ditches need to be cared for too. Farmers are out there spraying the weeds, sometimes even the insects in those ditches, just so we can get more enjoyment out of that and so those problems don't spread into our fields. But one of the weeds that could be in the ditch is our weed of the week. We'll show you how to stop it coming up later in the show.